What is an autism meltdown? It is common for a person with autism to experience meltdowns. As a parent, it is distressing as well as mentally tiring and can be physically challenging. Most parents of children with autism do everything they can to avoid new or unexpected circumstances that may instigate overload that could lead to a meltdown. If this sounds familiar, know that you are not alone. It helps parents once they understand what a meltdown is, as then you are able to gain the ability to foresee the signs of a meltdown, as well as identify the causes and reduce the frequency. Meltdown and autism. Meltdowns happen when autistic children and teenagers feel completely overwhelmed, lose control of their behavior, and find it very hard to calm themselves. Meltdowns are a sign of distress. Meltdowns might include behavior like rocking, crying, hitting, or withdrawing. Meltdowns can make it hard for autistic children and teenagers to take part in everyday activities. What is a meltdown? A meltdown is an intense response to overwhelming circumstances, a complete loss of behavioral control. People with autism often have difficulty expressing when they are feeling overly anxious or overwhelmed, which leads to an involuntary coping mechanism, a meltdown. What causes a meltdown? There isn't a simple one word answer for what causes a meltdown. Meltdowns are just as individual as the unique personalities that children are born with. The cause of meltdowns varies from child to child and much depends upon the situation itself. But here are some common trigger points. Sensory overload. Children with autism may have hypersensitivities in one or more of their senses, and some senses can be undersensitive, which can provoke sensory overload with too much stimulation, followed by panic and a meltdown. Information overload. Autistic children may become confused when too much complexity comes at them at once, such as too many instructions or demands or language that is not understood. This can lead to stress, anxiety, and physical pain in some children. Emotional overload. When a child has problems expressing themselves, it ordinarily is too complicated for them to understand their own feelings. Children with autism may find it difficult to ask for help when they become anxious, and when they don't have the intrinsic mechanisms to calm down, their emotions become too much to handle and a meltdown ensues. Meltdown warning signs and prevention. As careful as you might be with avoiding activities or situations that can lead to meltdowns, it just is not feasible to duck away from meltdowns entirely. You can, however, try to intervene and stop a meltdown in its tracks before it goes full force by picking up on your child's warning signs. What you can do in a meltdown. Remember this key element: you cannot avoid meltdowns entirely. As a parent, your first goal is to remain calm. Safety is a must. Have a strategy in place to protect your child and yourself from harm. Move to a quiet place, away from the stimulation that may have evoked the overload until the meltdown is over. When you are in a public area, this requires pre-planning, such as knowing where a quiet place is that you can take your child to. Also, pack a survival kit of familiar and soothing items that are your child's favorite coping mechanisms.